Coolidge's words were reflected in many ways, including surveys that show, oh, so that was Coughlin, and that's Coolidge's words. Surveys that are shown on this slide, and you may not be able to see it, but they essentially show very negative reactions and impressions of American Jews during that period. For example, some say that 31% of Americans believed that Jews were less patriotic than other citizens. 41% felt they had too much power. And taken together, all these surveys left the impression that, as Harvard sociologist David Weitzman wrote in 1942, that anti-Semitism was just below the boiling point in America. And 3 years later, the pollster Elmo Roper found that, quote, anti-Semitism had spread all over the nation and is particularly virulent in urban settings. And this was, of course, both these surveys, both these people were writing and discussing this during World War II, when the U.S. was already in active war against the Axis, against the Nazis. That Roosevelt was not only cognizant but heavily influenced by public opinion has been shown recently by some historical studies. This trait of FDR was so well known that one of his most vocal critics of the period, the popular author H.L. Mencken, once said, quote, if FDR became convinced tomorrow that coming out for cannibalism would get him the votes he so sorely needs, he would begin fattening up a missionary in the White House backyard come Wednesday. Weitzman himself acknowledged this factor and its impact on Jewish immigration, pointing out that these negative attitudes penetrated all sectors of wartime America. Many millions of people would not necessarily have personally mistreated a Jew. Beneath the surface, however, there were uncrystallized but negative feelings about Jews. What this meant was that a large body of decent and normally considerate people, again, not the fringes, was so predisposed not to care about European Jews or to care whether the government did anything to help save them. The paralyzing effect of those negative feelings, of course, cuts to the core of why we have gathered here. And that is why it is important to see what we've learned from that period and how it relates to us today. As I said earlier, much of my work involves studying current anti-Semitism and extremism, and one of the primary sources that I use is the internet. So when I was examining the material related to Jewish immigration in the 1930s, I was struck by how similar it was to some sort of the sort of thing that one can find online today. And of course, the internet itself lends itself to that purpose. As historian Simon Sham has noted, the ultimate danger of online extremism is that it allows for the electronic extension of the paranoid style out to the much bigger constituencies of those who are merely aggrieved. In general, the internet has proven to be an unprecedented tool for communication and marketing, but especially so for extremists of all types. The combination of an expensive, instantaneous global access that is generally unmonitored and difficult to block has drawn extremists of every type and extended their reach far beyond their wildest dreams. The growth of these websites has been charted. Beginning in one in April of 1995, today our database at the Simon Wiesenthal Center has over 10,000 such sites. They target diverse populations. I'm skipping through for reasons of time. And we go into many different things, but I want to show you a segment, again, of, sorry, those were some of the polls. And that's some of the material. Every year, we've been doing an annual CD of examples of some of that type of material. This is a group based out in the United States, founded by an optometrist in Michigan, who has had private correspondence and cooperation with Holocaust deniers, anti-Semites, and racists, and is heading one of the most activist groups in the United States against immigration. And again, this is another one here. Again, all coming in from images that you get from the United States. The man in the hood and stuff of the Ku Klux Klan is the sheriff out in New Mexico. This is one of the most vicious elements. This is a game aimed at children. In the game, the basic premise of the game is that as you, well, let me just go back. We can't operate it here, but as you see the illegal immigrants cross the Rio Grande from Mexico to Texas, as they cross, you shoot them down. The more you shoot, the higher your score. The little American flag that comes up as the game is played has a Jewish star in the center of it instead of the stripes in the background, showing that the United States government that allows this illegal immigration is controlled by Zionists, by Jews, and so it's just part of a Jewish plot to undermine the fabric of the U.S. society. The saddest part of this game is that it's been in existence for a number of years, originally just on the fringes. Recently, we have seen it penetrating and being reviewed by mainstream gaming magazines and online sites that discuss its technical qualities and how it fares as entertainment.